Okay, I think we are live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone who is joining us live, and those of you who will catch us live at a different time. I'm Sandy Freschi, and this is Pilar Lesko, and I'm so delighted to have Pilar on today to talk about and share her wisdom as a projector who coaches entrepreneurs and and she has just launched a great course called Projector Magic. And when I saw the description of it, when I saw the title, it just resonated with me because I know so deeply within myself that we have magic as projectors, and I don't always do the best job of uh, explaining what that is or how to get to it. So I'm having this conversation with Pilar today, so that she can share her wisdom about it and bring her voice to it. Now we are live, so if you are watching on Facebook or watching on YouTube and you want to chat in questions, you can do that and we will see them here. So, Pilar, do you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background about what you do and what your philosophy is in 2 paragraphs or less?
That's funny. Yes. I'll start by saying that one of the problems I encounter the most with projectors is an inability to succinctly describe who they are and what they do in the world, because of how different our energy works when it comes to what we're doing, especially with people. So I will try. I It's funny. I really don't like the word business coach. For a long time, I was very repulsed by the word and the industry. But by a string of synchronous events, that is what I find myself doing. Except that the way in which I'm doing it, and the reason it even happened is because when I decided to start my business, or like I say, when my business started me, I was already really well into my human design studies. And I told myself, I remember the day it all began, I am going to do this in a way that honors my design. And that is a non negotiable. Because I had already lived many lives where I didn't honor my design.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what that felt like. So when I started my business, I was actually doing human design and astrology readings and working as an organic farmer. And along the way, eventually I started attracting a lot of non-sacrals and some people with sacrals as well, who were just like, teach us how you're running your business. Like I love watching you in your business. I love that you don't follow any of the rules. Um, Please teach me how to do that. And come to find out, I absolutely love doing that. Like I couldn't be more thrilled by it. Um, I think that business itself is a highly spiritual and magical practice that gets written off as a more mundane thing. And I think that when we approach it as that, it becomes this huge vehicle for awakening and transformation. And it has the power to obliterate everything that you thought you were, to allow you to become who you actually are. So my background is long and varied. There's a professional background in marketing, an academic background in communications and public relations, 5 years living on organic farms and traveling, herbalism, astrology, a lot of mystical arts. And where I'm at today, the irony is not lost on me that a lot of what I'm doing is bridging all of my more mundane studies and professional work in business and marketing with my fascination for things like human design, energetics, reprogramming, mystical arts, indigenous wisdom, etc. And then somehow housing them in the title of business coach. Yeah.
Yeah, business coach. with a new paradigm. We spent a lot of time prior to getting online. We had like a pre-party before getting online. So let's pull out some nuggets from what we were talking about. You know, I love the fact that you have an organic farming background. And
Yeah.
I'd love for you to kind of talk about that, or um, how you bridge that into your coaching of entrepreneurs and your business coaching.
Yeah. So what's really interesting about my time spent farming is that when I left to do that, the intention was to reconnect to the land, to reconnect to a more primal way of living, to immerse myself in medicinal herbs, and just to immerse myself in a way of life that I felt like I had never touched into in a prolific way or in a sustained way. And when I got there, within 48 hours of my first farm, it became very obvious that though my intention was external, I was actually there to farm myself.
Mm.
And what ensued was a 5-year, very intense deconditioning, completely facilitated by the land. Like it was like from the moment I got there, it was like my soul just took a deep breath and was like, okay, it's time to start letting go of all of these things that are not you.
Mm.
So I always joke that I'm a 1-3, so I can be pretty extreme. My third line is really strong. Um, I always joke that I deconditioned by living on a farm offline for 4 years.
Well, you went in deep.
Yeah, like I just
literally into the dirt.
and that's exactly what I did. And I don't think everyone needs to do that by any means, but it was what I needed. And the wisdoms and the lessons from that journey and from the land and from the plants and the people, they just altered every cell of my being. I walked away from that experience interacting with reality in an entirely different way. So when my business began, which was while I was still on the farm, it was very important to me that I not lose touch with this very cyclical, grounded, interdependent way of living that I had become accustomed to on the farm, and that I somehow bridge that into my business. And that's a really beautiful sentiment, but it is much, much easier said than done. I'm still in the process and the inquiry of really understanding how can I make my business like nature? How can I set up my business so that when it's time for me to die with the plants, and or when it's time for me to go through a death, I will be supported and nourished by my business. How can I interact with my business in a cyclical way where I am not pressuring myself to be in constant spring and summer, and recognize that every season is very important for the business? Those are like some big ones that I contemplate quite often.
Oh, wow. That's so deep and so rich, especially when you take it into the context of business, in the context of cultivating, literally cultivating a business. And how do you see that, um, your perspective in that way? How does that, how do you use that to support projectors in particular, with your literal organic perspective?
um, let's see. There's a lot there. Well, I would say that the first big thing is that, well, there's two big things. The first is that projectors come into my field, and oftentimes I represent what's possible to them. And there's an immediate attraction of like, wait a second. Like, you're not on social media posting 3 times a day, or you're not doing all of the things that everyone else is doing. And I get this a lot from people who come into my field, that there's this immediate like, whoa, I didn't know this was possible. So just, I know a big part of my personal practice is the more that I can embody that and continue to dissolve and cultivate belief systems that support that, the more of a beacon I will continue to be. Now, once, let's say someone gets in my field and they're like, I want to work with you. One of the first things I've noticed that needs to be checked in with and looked at is not, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Did you know you're only supposed to work 4 hours a day? Like, are you taking naps? It's none of that. It's who are you, what is your identity? And not the identity of the center, but like on a deep level, what is the identity you're playing out, and what are your belief systems around that? So it's basically like the first thing we need to do is look at your conditioning. Because if we don't dig into that, you might try to implement what it means to be a projector, but your conditioning will win, and it will not work for you. So it's embodying it for people, but then also helping them make those really deep shifts to where it starts becoming a reality for them. And then the nature piece and the cyclical piece, that just lands and sort of permeates who they're being. It's, again, I don't need to say like, okay, you're going to have seasons. They just know. And they're like, okay, I'm in a season of this, and they've cultivated the belief systems, and then from that know what actions to take to support that.
Yeah, so it's like it's like you go in and activate those awakenings, or help them to activate these awakenings that just naturally align or help projectors, and probably other energy types too, to this this landscape of themselves, of this, and what grows where and when it grows. And we had a great time, you guys, talking about my orchard and her organic gardening before we got on. So this is sort of adding to that conversation about, plants die in the winter. Like you said, plants die and certain things grow in the winter. Well, some things grow, most things go dormant. Yeah. But what season are you in, and recognizing that, and really being in there. And what I find is, with all energy types, but projectors in particular, who really start to get grounded in who they are, and really recognize how they've been conditioned, and are able to do that deep deconditioning process, is at that very, very core level. We know what season we're in. It's
yeah.
But that outside, we were talking about the outside matrix that we enter into when we are building a business, or when we're creating a business, has its own conditioning field. And a lot of times we know specifically that, this is a dormant period, where this is a time for me to go and rest and recoup, and maybe write a book, or make some notes about writing a book, or dream, or vision, or whatever. But because of this outside matrix of the business conditioning, the conditioning of the business world, sometimes we don't give ourselves permission for that. So, yeah.
Yes. And I feel that that is extremely difficult for projectors, because we love to look at what everyone else is doing, because we love observing other people. So I've noticed in myself and my clients, there's this initial like withdrawal when you decide to start pulling your energy back in and stop looking out at what everyone else is doing, because you're just not used to living that way. You're not used to having all of your energy with you for the majority of the time. And there's this period where it's like wait, can I trust myself? Like, what if I don't get the next piece of information I need? Or what if I lose relevancy if I don't post for a week or something like that? And as the energy comes back, and I've seen this in myself and many of my clients, you sort of settle into this like groove of, oh, this feels really good. And I know when to go out and look outside, and I know when to pull back in, and I know what doesn't feel good. And I've learned about how I like to manage my energy. And it's a practice. It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah, it is an ongoing practice. And I know we were talking before about this dance between the inner and the outer. And can you speak to that a little bit? And before you do, I know we've got some people on watching. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat, and we'll look at them, or Pilar will look at them.
And so the inner and the outer. So my perspective on this is not black and white, because of how differently we're all wired. So, for example, when you look out at the majority of people, it's very obvious that there is a massive lack of doing the internal work and sitting with yourself and being with yourself and getting to know your internal landscape. That's severely lacking on a collective level. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, doing that work is super important for everyone, because most of us have been conditioned away from it. And it's ultimately that work, however it manifests, is oftentimes the thing that puts you in touch with that ability to take aligned action or organic action, where the external world is no longer this thing you're concerned about arranging. It just naturally starts arranging itself because who you are being has changed. Now, the point I'll make here, though, that I always feel really important to bring it up, is that there are a lot of us who are actually really comfortable with just hanging out in the internal world all the time. And that was me for a really long time. I did personal development, spiritual healing work like a wild banshee, but I never did anything outside of myself. It never came into form. There was a fear of moving into action. So I attract a lot of women who are just like this, who are like, oh, I love assignments. Give me all of the internal work. But then I'm looking outside at their business and nothing's happening. So my belief on this is that if you're somebody who actually loves to hang out in the internal world, what's actually more important for those people is taking messy action and then allowing the action to be the thing that brings up the next sort of pod of work. So the action itself can be the thing that shifts you into your next phase of, okay, what needs to be looked at? Just like the internal work can be the thing that shifts you into your next pod of action. But so many people love to hang out exclusively in one arena. And so much of the spiritual or mystical or magical path is about getting into a place of non-duality, where the two start to morph and become one, where it's no longer, oh, my masculine and my feminine, but it starts to become a harmonization. So I think you always need to be checking in with like what side needs the work, what side needs the healing, what side needs integration, so that the ultimate goal is that they start to harmonize. And it's just harmonizing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do like an infinity sign.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I could really relate to that, the whole thing of wanting to be internal a lot.
Yes.
And
A lot of projectors do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not all the time, but I'm wondering if that's like a cyclical thing. If you've seen that as something cyclical for projectors or anyone that you're working with, but we're talking about projectors today, if that's, I know for sometimes it seems like I'm in a season where like a 2-day season or 3-day season where all I
Right.
want to do is read and I want to study or I want to take this course or listen to these recordings. And, on my to-do list, I have blog post or video or,
Yeah.
and there's just not the energy for that at that time. So what would you say to an experience like that?
I would say that is a totally different energetic than I'm going to do internal work to avoid having to take action. Because just the fact that you have a list of what you plan on doing, it shows that you have become comfortable. I mean, you have a business. Look at the action you took to have this conversation with me. We know that you know how to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm speaking more to the energetic of maybe you recognize how much internal work needs to be done. And I should say too that I see this as really common in third lines, because third lines I've noticed love to pendulum swing from one extreme to the other. So you can get into this space of doing the internal work, and maybe that was needed for, let's say, a couple months, but there comes a point where action is the next step.
Mm-hmm.
um and I've seen people avoid that. But what I'm speaking to, I think, is a much smaller demographic than the demographic of people who always take action and avoid anything inside of themselves.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And as you're talking about taking action, I know that there are going to be questions, especially for projectors who are just starting to reconcile their strategy of waiting, and wanting to really do that part of their deconditioning journey. Um, can you clarify a little bit around uh, the action and the invitation?
Yeah. um yeah, okay, so I have some pretty strong opinions on invitations.
Okay,
um
go for it.
I sometimes feel like waiting for the invitation is presented in a very black and white way. Um, for example, I've had many projectors come to me who got a reading or listened to something or worked with someone, and they're like, okay, so I've been basically doing nothing for a couple months, waiting, and nothing's happening. Is this how it's supposed to go? And I think that I think that there just needs to be more nuance brought to the invitation conversation, um, because it becomes a very nuanced experience as you deepen into the energetics of what an invitation even feels like. So yes, there are those very obvious dramatic invitations where there's no doubt in your mind that this is not an invitation. And I think I used to advise clients in readings, if you want to spend a period of time just waiting for very dramatic invitations, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But don't just flop over like a fish and wait, because it's your frequency is the thing that pulls in the invitation. So you have to be doing something to your garden if you want to like send out the bat signal for the invitations to come in. So there's that piece. And then there's the piece around, I have experienced invitations in many flavors and many forms because, as you know, it's invitation, sight, and recognition. And I think the three of those things can happen in myriad ways. So I have experienced an invitation as someone's body language or eye contact sort of shifting towards me, like, please talk to me. Or for another example I like to give is, I'm splenic. So I will literally feel my intuition like, go talk to that person or go say this thing. And nobody's inviting me. It's just an energetic that I'm feeling intuitively pulled. So when I started my experiment, I did the whole, I'm going to sit back and wait for really, really obvious invitations. And I did that for a while. And then I got bored and noticed that there was all these other ways to play with the energetic of invitations. And again, I'm a 1-3. So I like jumping in and making a mess. So I was actively and intentionally going against waiting just to see how it felt in my body and just to
Mhm.
watch what would happen. Um, so if I were to like wrap this up in a simple way, and this is what I used to say to people all the time, don't be afraid to just experiment. Like if you're feeling called to reach out to someone, just try it and see what happens. And if you do feel that kickback of, oh, this isn't right, then you know moving forward what it feels like when it's not right. And when you do receive what I call a golden invitation, like super aligned, better than what you even thought you wanted, like take a minute to deconstruct how that happened. What were you doing? How were you feeling? Were you attached to receiving it? Were you in sort of more of a surrendered place? And just sort of like deconstruct how invitations are happening for you.
Yeah. Wow. That's a whole course in itself right there. Yeah, and I think that goes into Jamie's question. I found human design after going through 4 years of deconditioning via inner work and hypnotherapy. I had a very basic or a very busy practice, and coincidentally, around the time I found human design and made consistent efforts to live my design, uh, my practice got slower. So this discussion is taking we were talking, she was talking, wrote this when we were talking about messy action. Taking messy action really resonates. Any tips on how to begin that? So do you have anything? I mean, you kind of talked about that uh, just now, but do you have anything to add?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is that that energetic of um finding your design as a projector and then the external world slowing down. I see that all the time. And this this is just my perception of one of the many things it could represent, but usually what it looks like to me is you're rewiring your own energetics. So reality has not caught up with your new level of consciousness yet, which means that there are still aspects of you and your belief systems are still shifting into a place of recognizing, embodying, and feeling worthy of living like a projector and having reality meet you there. So there's like a lag. The physical world is lagging right now because that's how things work. It's ethereal, energetic, physical, and it takes a little bit of time when you're rewiring for reality to catch up. So that's totally normal. And that actually to me is a really good sign. It means that you're changing. Um, Tips on beginning messy action. um, what is the thing that you're putting off? What is that thing that you're saying, oh, I'm not ready yet? Or, oh, I need to work on this a little bit more until I can go do that. That's the next thing you should be doing. And then just recognizing that just the action of doing that thing is going to reflect back to you where you still don't believe X is possible or where you still haven't integrated this aspect of being a projector.
Mm, very nice. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love your approach of you have to kind of try it. I mean, that is the line three, isn't it? You have to kind of
Yes.
try it to know how it's going to work out, to know how it's going to affect you. Um, and one thing I want to speak to with this whole invitation and waiting. Oh, and before I do that, I really love what your perception there, or your perspective of how life and the outside world has to catch up with those internal shifts. Jamie says super helpful. So great.
Yay.
Yeah. And one thing I want to just say about that invitation piece, since I did open the Pandora's box on that, is, we don't need an invitation to do those things that on our own behalf that really inspire us. And
No.
yeah, if you're gonna wait for, if you have it well within your skill set or your desire, your inspiration to go and put your website together, or do the next blog post, you're just holding yourself back. Um, if you're just waiting for someone to invite you, because people a lot of times don't even know what you have to say. We don't even know a lot of times what we have to say until we put it out there. So yeah, there's so much play within the aligned projectors world. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
find, and you tell me if this is true for you, but I find that when I'm really living in that flow, um, it's as though my business or my clients, I guess, have already invited me into the things that I'm creating to serve them. And and I have this energy under me that's sort of just assisting the ride, supporting the ride. And sometimes I look up and it almost feels as, even though this is not my strategy, that I'm working as though I'm a manifester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can do anything on my own behalf. I have the energy there to do it. My clients are inviting the work out of me. My viewers on YouTube and Facebook are inviting the things out of me. And and I'm just riding in that energy and that flow of support. There's no start, stop. There's no waiting for anything because the connection has already been made.
Yes. Yes. I I completely agree. I've called it before, like the divine hand coming down and just like pushing you to the next right person or to the next right place. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Divine hand, that goes hand in hand, or that really speaks to the title of your program, your course, Projector Magic. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And can you tell us what your concept of projector magic is?
Let's see. Well, let me preface this by saying I think every type has their own flavor of magic. Um, so I don't just think projectors are the magical type and everyone else is boring.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
I'm just
I've
kidding.
been in a relationship with a manifester for almost 5 years, and his brand of magic is I can't even comprehend it sometimes. Um, so projector magic. Actually, I can give my favorite metaphor for this. You'll notice if you check out the sales page or any of the images that everything has a spider web in the background.
Hmm.
I did that intentionally because one of my favorite metaphors for the projector energy type is a spider. Um, and non coincidentally, when I was farming, we had tons of spiders in our room, and my partner and I would just lay and watch them build their webs. And we would just watch for hours every night as we were falling asleep. We would watch the spiders. Um, so, a spider, when you watch a spider, and I'm going to be saying she because I look at spiders as feminine, even though I know there's many types of spiders.
There's lots
um,
of Charlotte, huh?
yeah,
Charlotte's
when
Web.
you when you watch a spider, she weaves her web in this beautiful, just miraculous, profound way. The web itself is absolutely gorgeous. She takes her time, she makes it pristine. To me, that's the projector working on their frequency, their energy, and their auric field. We weave our energy by working on ourselves through energetic management, through integrating our design, through any sort of work we do. It's like we're tending the soils of our energy field and we're weaving this beautiful web around us. Um, and then the action we take in the external world where we show up is basically just revealing the web to people. Like people are getting a taste of this field around us. And once the spider has weaved the web, she just sits back and all of her food gets caught in the web. And she didn't have to go out and hunt or force or initiate. Things just get stuck in her web. And it's the same thing with projectors, because if we're just focusing on the web and weaving it and revealing it to people, when the people in the context of business, let's say, when the people who are meant for us come into our field, we don't have to force or push or go out and get them. Once they're in the web, it's like it's done. They already know, and we already know. So that is just that, that is just one of the many magical aspects. I would say that the other one that is near and dear to my heart is just the fact that we see so deeply into things, and just so deeply. It's so beautiful. I remember when I first started studying human design, in a program I was in, it basically said, get used to people not liking that you know more about themselves than they do.
Oh, I love that.
And it was just such confirmation for me, because I had just lived so much of my life feeling like that. And it was also just really kind of like a healing balm, because similar to the spider, the projector's energy can be really intense. It can be really intense to be around us and to be seen by us. And to have parts of you seen that you did not want people to see. And I think that is part of our magic, that depth of sight. And then the sort of disciplinary action that we have to take to magnify that magic is recognize that we're not for everyone, and not everyone should get stuck in our web. It's meant for specific people.
Mm, beautifully said. Yeah, I love that analogy of the spider's web. It is so like that, you know. It's like we can be it's like our own matrix, like our
Yes.
own
Yes.
interconnected matrix, you know. And I'm sure as you were watching the spiders build their webs, they were probably kind of interconnecting and building this place of attraction and this place of, you know, fly in and, well, it would be different for us projectors. We're not going to eat prey, but
Right.
it fly in and get our medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, the spider is not sitting there freaking out. Like, oh, I hope somebody lands in my web. I hope something happens. The spider is like, my web is awesome. I'm going to eat dinner tonight. Like,
Yeah.
there's not even, there's no concern. And that's such a big piece for projectors is, yes, we are designed to receive sight and recognition from the other. But our deeper work is learning how to constantly feed that to ourselves, so that we're not searching for worthiness from that external sight and recognition, but that when we walk into a room, our web is so shiny and so embodied and so integrated, and we feel so worthy that when people show up, we're not like, oh, thank God somebody sees me. It's like it's just, of course, like, of course this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course it did. Because that's how shiny and brilliant my light is, you know. I'm putting
Yeah.
it out there. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
naturally does that. Wow. So when people come into your um, Projector Magic course, how do you or what do you intend to how do you intend to orient them, support them, train them, so to speak, to access their magic and create their business, their dream business? Is that a big question?
Yeah. Um, Let me see if I can distill it down. So there's a lot of core components that I think really allow this to happen. Because just hearing someone tell you something, it does something for you. Just doing practices but never taking action, or just practices, do something for you. Being in a group and having the group experience does something for you. But I think, and this is something I encourage all the projectors who are coming in to really cultivate, I think when you step into an experience like this, it has the power, and my intention for it too is that it has the power to catalyze all of these projectors into an entirely new reality, an entirely new way of practicing business. And just, I don't just expect their relationship to their business to change. I expect everything to change because I don't see separation in energy. Their business isn't separate from their love life, which isn't separate from their health, which isn't separate from their spiritual practice. So, what do I actually intend to do? Well, there's going to be sort of a combination of activations, written word, audios, practices, spreadsheets. I basically set it up so that they're going to be working at it from all sides. So there's going to be a physical energy intake. There's going to be a mental energy intake. There's going to be emotional energy intake. Like the first part of the program, the first few weeks is just like going in and working on their own energy and cleaning things up and putting things in place and releasing things and just sort of getting them to this place of clarity and autonomy in their reality. And the hope throughout the whole course, and especially in those first few weeks, is that they really get the tools and the understanding of how to start recoding who they are on a subconscious level and on a like deep identity and belief system level. Then there's this point in the course where we sort of move into all of the aspects of business that projectors usually are very confused by. So pricing, marketing, sales, boundaries, all these things that projectors need to be interacting with in a different way. And the hope is that with everything they're going to be recoding and everything they're going to be remembering about how they work and who they are, they're going to start to recognize that even though I'm giving them really magical ways to interact with these things, they can do whatever they want. Like they get to design this whole reality that is their business. And if they have the energy and the belief systems behind it, it's going to work for them. So my intention, this is why I say this isn't another basic business course, because I don't want to teach people how to make a funnel. I don't want to teach people about the marketing strategy that will definitely work. I want to teach projectors what I've learned over these last 7 years of my experiment. And it's like you said, I get to create this whole matrix that is mine. And if I have the belief systems and the faith to back it up, eventually reality meets me there. And all of a sudden, I'm playing in this entirely new reality. And then it's possible for everyone else around me. And then we just keep moving.
That is so powerful. That is just, it's just powerful and awesome. And and it's, you know, one of the things I want to go back to from our pre-conversation
Mm-hmm.
is what we were talking about with how we are as projectors sort of here, and you said this, you said we're here to teach, because can you just explain that about not having a sacral motor and being here to kind of teach this new paradigm?
Yeah. So again, before I had started my business, when I was studying human design, I remember really early on coming across Ra's quote, "Non-sacrals are here to become wise about work and having children." And I remember looking at that like, oh, those are like two of the biggest things that you do in your lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it made perfect sense to me conceptually. When I started my business, that's when it really started to land. And I recognized, oh, becoming wise means like basically get ready to have to emancipate yourself from every sort of distortion that tells you that you're supposed to be doing things like everyone else. And simultaneous to that, get ready to have to play to what many people looks like a very magical, insane, radical game in your life. Um, when I started to understand that getting wise is like this initiatory fast track into just living life on your terms, it became a lot easier to just play my business in this very insane, magical way. Um, so my belief is that every projector sort of has this, it's like they have this blueprint that they're supposed to bring down and like anchor into the physical world. And I don't think any of our blueprints look the same, but I do think that the similarity between all of them is that they don't look like anything we've seen before this. They look totally new. And I know a handful of projector entrepreneurs who I see it. I'm like, that is your blueprint. Like you are literally bringing down this new way of being in business and existing in your reality. And I think that with the genetic mutation in 2027 and with the supposed rise of projectors on the planet, it's getting to this point almost like the pressure cooker is starting to boil. And maybe for the last decade, it was okay for a lot of us to be like very deep in our deconditioning processes. And maybe it was okay to be kind of lingering in the background and playing small. But I really feel with the way consciousness is going, it's getting to the point where if you're a projector and you feel ready to like start bringing out your medicine and start bringing in this new blueprint, there is no better time to start experimenting than right now. And that's what it is. It's an experiment. It's what can you do to start taking steps to understand what your blueprint is, and then what can you do to just start taking action to bring it into reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love the word that you used, the rise. It's as though we have hit this critical mass. And I feel that,
Yeah.
10 years ago when I was just looking at my chart going, what does this mean? You're right. It was really appropriate a decade ago to just sort of get, as a projector, at least in my experience, to get my feet on the ground, to kind of figure out what's what and what my design's about, and decondition, all of the other stuff that's not reflective of my true power. But just I would say in the last year or two, there's been this, I don't know, this feeling of this energy, this rise of critical mass of projectors who, at least in my world, who are looking at, well, I have all of these gifts. I've spent the last 7 to 10 years doing all of this inner work. I need to get this out in the world. I need to do what it is that I came here to do. And I feel like it's time to do it.
Yeah.
So, the course that you have, to activate projectors to their magic so that they create these businesses and become these entrepreneurs that they're really here to be, if that's what they're called to do, is in their projector way, in their design, that is just so powerful, because we're retrofitting the conditioning of the business matrix. It's almost as though we're entering into, those of us who are entrepreneurs are entering into the deconditioning of the entrepreneurial matrix, of the entrepreneurial business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I totally see that.
Yeah. And I don't know if this spoke to Trademark 27's question about being a 6/2 splenic projector, wanting to know, do I become an entrepreneur and form a group or unit to lead? I think if you go back and listen to some of our talk prior to this, you might get some clarity about that. But if that's what you're feeling, it's certainly probably the place where you can begin to experiment. That's what I would say. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I don't think that anyone else except yourself, your intuition and your relationship to the universe, or whatever you want to call it, can give you the green light on becoming an entrepreneur. If even the fact that you're asking that question means that it's already been floating around your reality, which means that it's probably already knocking at your door. Which means that, what are you waiting for?
Mm. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So, I think I have your information. I'm sure I have your course link in the descriptions.
Yay.
So if anyone is wanting to check that out, it's right there in the description on Facebook and YouTube. Um, is there anything else that you would, any other wisdom that you would like to share with the projectors who are here?
Yeah. So the other piece that it's on my sales page, and I talk about it all the time, but it feels really just alive for me, is that, oh, can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I think one of my headphones died. Um, I've worked with a lot of projectors, a lot. 90% of my clients through readings, courses, and one-on-one coaching are projectors. And something I've discovered through all of this is that projectors don't need help being projectors. um, Projectors don't need help seeing into people. Projectors don't need help guiding. Like, yes, we can train and learn systems and learn tools and all of these things, and those are great. But at the end of the day, our role in the tribe was always the guide. It was always to see into everyone and see where their energy should be going and where it shouldn't. And that is deeply, deeply embedded in our DNA. And we don't need anyone to train us how to do that. So you don't need permission to be a projector. Um, Projectors need, what I've seen is that projectors need help with knowing everything I just said and believing it to be true on like on a deep cellular level, and then B, recognizing that if they do decide to bring their gifts into the entrepreneurial space, they're going to have to do it differently. And that might be where you need help. But the important thing to know is that when you do go get help, you don't want to go and look for someone who's going to tell you what to do. You want to find someone who's going to reflect back to you how different you work, how powerful your energy is, and give you tools to get in touch with how your energy works. And if either two of those things are the things holding you back, then like let my words right now hopefully be something that starts to like dissipate that for you. Your medicine and your sight is so needed. Like I feel so like deeply about this creation because I have had just the immense gift of attracting many projectors into my life and feeling what it's like to have them around me and to be seen by them and just the wisdom that we hold. And I have had people reflect back to me, I have never felt so seen right now as I do by you. And if you're a projector, you have that gift. And if you look out at the world right now and you look at the state of the world and the state of separation we're in, people need now more than ever to feel deeply seen. So if either of those two things are holding you back, like this is your time to start working through that and to bring these immensely powerful gifts into the world.
Mm. Whew.
Yeah.
Standing ovation. Yay. Wow. Yes. Everything. I echo all of that. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, I am so excited and so honored. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on, first of all. And I'm so honored that you agreed to come on. And I'm honored to be in your presence, in your inspiration, and in your web.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. This was as soon as I got your invitation, I was like, this is a golden invitation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your willingness to your willingness to support me and to bring me on here too really speaks like volumes to me about the work you've done around lifting other projectors up and knowing that there's room for everyone. And so that was super touching to me. And then also, I'm always just honored to be in the presence of someone who's been with the system for a fair amount of time, because I think that there's wisdom in spending time with something. There's wisdom in years stacking on years and really understanding something as complex as human design. So it's an honor for me to be here as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us, whether you've submitted questions or comments. Trademark, Daria, Jamie, Vibe Girl, thank you so much for your comments. And those of you who were on and listening, thank you so much for your presence and your support. And we encourage you to share this with any projector entrepreneurs that you feel need some inspiration and might benefit from Pilar's program. Please share it. And, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is like a whole group projector effort. So I'm going to just leave it at that, and we'll go ahead and sign off. And if you missed the beginning, go back and watch it. Pilar had so much inspiration and wisdom and insight to share. So enjoy. Thank you, everyone. Bye.